Life doesn't care how strong you think you are. It will test you. It will throw setbacks, betrayals, and failures in your path, waiting to see if you will crumble or rise. And when it does, the only thing that matters is this: how do you respond? Picture this. You lose your job overnight. Your finances collapse. The people you trusted turn their backs on you. At that moment, when everything is against you, what will you do? Will you break under pressure, drowning in fear and doubt? Or will you stand unshaken because you've trained your mind to handle anything? The ancient Stoics understood this truth. Mental toughness is not a luxury. It is survival. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire through war, plague, and betrayal. Yet every day he reminded himself, hardships are inevitable. But my response, that is mine to control. And that's what we're here to talk about today. 7 battle-tested habits, practiced by history's strongest minds, designed to make you unbreakable. These are not theories, they are weapons. When you master them, nothing, no failure, no rejection, no storm will shake you. But don't just listen, engage. Drop a comment. What's the biggest challenge you've ever faced, and how did you respond? Stay with me till the end, because by the time you finish this video, you won't just understand Stoic resilience, you'll embody it. Let's begin. 1. Become a master of adaptation. Change doesn't knock before entering. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It arrives unannounced, sometimes as a whisper, other times as a hurricane. And when it does, you have 2 choices: resist and suffer, or adapt and rise. Most people resist. They cling to routines, to familiarity, to what feels safe, believing that if they hold on tightly enough, they can keep things from changing. But that's a lie. Life moves with or without you. The economy shifts, relationships evolve, unexpected challenges arise. You will lose people, opportunities, stability. It's not a question of if, it's a matter of when. And the more you resist, the more you suffer. Think about it. When has fighting against reality ever made life easier? When has denying the inevitable ever led to peace? It never does. Because suffering is not in the change itself, it's in the refusal to accept it. The Stoics understood this truth better than anyone. They trained themselves to see things as they are, not as they wished them to be. They didn't waste time hoping the world would bend to their desires. Instead, they mastered the ability to bend themselves, to adjust, to pivot, to turn obstacles into opportunities. Marcus Aurelius ruled during war, disease, and betrayal. He could have seen these as signs of his own misfortune, but he didn't. Instead, he reminded himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about that. The very thing you see as an obstacle might be the exact thing that leads you forward if you stop resisting it. Mark learned this the hard way. At 40, he had a stable career, a predictable routine, and a clear path ahead. He wasn't rich, but he was comfortable. Life made sense. Then, out of nowhere, his company shut down. Overnight, his security vanished. At first, he reacted like most people would. Anger, frustration, fear. He blamed the system, the economy, bad luck. He convinced himself that his best years were behind him, that it was too late to start over, that he was too old to learn something new. Weeks passed, then months. He was stuck in a cycle of resentment and self-pity, waiting for the past to return. But the past never does. One day, something changed. He stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What can I do next?" He shifted from resistance to adaptation, and that one decision changed everything. Instead of seeing himself as a victim, he saw himself as a student. He learned new skills, explored new industries, and stepped into an entirely new field, one he never would have considered before. It wasn't easy. It wasn't instant. But years later, he admitted that losing his job was the best thing that ever happened to him. It forced him to grow in ways he never would have otherwise. Now imagine if he had stayed in resistance mode. Imagine if he had continued to fight against reality, waiting for things to go back to normal. He would still be stuck, bitter, helpless. This is the choice you have in front of you every time life shifts unexpectedly. You can resist and break, or you can adapt and rise. Think of a tree in a storm. The rigid ones snap, the flexible ones bend, absorb the force, and rise again. Strength is not about being unmovable, it's about being unbreakable. And to be unbreakable, you must first be adaptable. Most people fear change because it threatens their sense of control. But here's the truth. Control is an illusion. You never had control over the world around you. The only real control you have is over your own mind. The Stoics knew this. That's why they didn't attach their peace to external circumstances. They trained themselves to remain steady no matter what happened. They practiced amor fati, the love of fate, not just accepting life's changes but embracing them, even when they were painful, even when they didn't make sense in the moment. Because every change, whether you see it now or not, is shaping you, making you stronger, sharper, more resilient. But only if you let it. You think you need stability? You don't. You need adaptability. Because life will keep changing, and the only question is, will you move with it or let it break you? Next time you face the unexpected, pause. Instead of resisting, ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? Stop fighting change. Start mastering it. That's the difference between those who survive and those who thrive. 2. Rule over your emotions. Don't be ruled by them. Emotion is not the enemy. Losing control is. The problem is never that you feel, it's how you react. Anger, frustration, anxiety, these are natural. But left unchecked, they dictate your actions, cloud your judgment, and drag you into decisions you'll regret. How many times have you said something in anger that you wished you could take back? How often has fear stopped you from making a move that could have changed your life? A single emotional reaction made in the heat of the moment can destroy years of effort. Think about it. A man gets insulted at work. His pride takes over. He lashes out at his boss. The damage is done. Career opportunities gone. Another man faces the same insult. He takes a breath. He doesn't react. He responds. He understands that what's happening externally is irrelevant. What matters is his control. That's power. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He ruled an empire where betrayal, war, and deceit surrounded him. If he let his emotions dictate his leadership, Rome would have crumbled. Instead, he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But most people do the opposite. They let external chaos invade their minds. They let frustration, jealousy, and insecurity pull them in every direction. And in doing so, they give away their control. They become puppets to their emotions, reacting instead of responding, living in a constant state of regret. There was a man, a father, a husband, a professional. Every day he was stretched thin between work and family. Deadlines piled up, responsibilities stacked higher. One night, after an exhausting day, his son ran up to him, excited, full of energy, just wanting a moment of his father's attention. But he was drained. He snapped, just a sharp, irritated tone. Nothing dramatic, but enough to make his son's face drop, enough to shift the energy in the room. The next day he thought about it. That one moment, his exhaustion, his stress, had turned into something much worse. It wasn't just about that single reaction, it was about a pattern. The way he let external pressures dictate his internal state, the way his lack of control over his emotions was shaping the people around him. So he changed. Not overnight, not easily, but deliberately. He practiced pausing. Before reacting, he trained himself to breathe, to step back mentally before letting emotion dictate his words. When work stress rose, he didn't bring it home. When frustration appeared, he questioned it instead of feeding it. And slowly he became something different. A man in control, not a man controlled. You've seen it in yourself, haven't you? That moment where something small, a comment, a delay, a mistake sets you off. But later, when the emotion passes, you wonder, was it worth it? Emotions are like the wind. They shift, change, and sometimes rage. But a skilled sailor doesn't scream at the storm. He adjusts his sails. Imagine you're in battle, arrows fly, chaos surrounds you. If you react emotionally, if you panic, if you let fear take over, you're finished. But if you hold your ground, if you control your breath, if you focus only on what matters, you win. That's what emotional control is, not suppression. Not pretending you don't feel, but commanding yourself, choosing when to act, how to respond, and when to let things pass. Seneca warned against acting in anger. He knew that when emotion takes over, reason disappears. And once reason is gone, you are no longer in control of your life. You're just reacting to whatever happens around you. That's not power, that's weakness. The next time you feel emotion rising, pause, observe it, question it. Is this worth your energy? Will this matter tomorrow? Most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the time, you'll realize that what seemed urgent, what felt overwhelming, was nothing but noise. A person who can command their emotions, who can remain calm under pressure, is unshakable. They don't lose themselves in temporary feelings. They don't let the world dictate their mind. You can be that person, but it takes training, deliberate practice, a commitment to never letting a fleeting emotion dictate a permanent action. So, before you react, before you let frustration or anger pull you into a decision you'll regret, stop. Breathe. Take control. Because the strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who needs nothing from the world to remain steady. 3. Guard your time like a fortress. Time is not just a resource, it's the most valuable thing you own. Lose money and you can earn it back. Lose possessions and you can replace them. But waste your time? It's gone forever. Most people don't treat time this way. They guard their wallets, lock their doors, and protect their possessions. But they give away their time freely to distractions, to obligations that don't serve them, to meaningless conversations, to endless scrolling on a screen. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, unfulfilled, stuck. Seneca warned about this long ago. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Every day, someone is trying to steal your time. A pointless meeting, a notification that leads to an hour of distraction. A person who constantly demands but never gives. And if you don't set boundaries, if you don't fiercely protect your time, they will take as much of it as they can. Saying no is not rude. It's necessary. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter, you are saying no to something that does. But here's the problem. Most people confuse being busy with being productive. They fill their days with tasks, running from one thing to another, never stopping. And at the end of the day, they collapse, exhausted, but with nothing meaningful accomplished. Busyness is a trap. It tricks you into believing you're making progress when, in reality, you're just spinning in place. Productivity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. If you don't take control of your time, someone else will. Your boss, your phone, social media, the endless stream of obligations that others impose on you. The question is, who is in charge of your schedule, your priorities, or everyone else's? The ancient Stoics didn't just manage their time, they mastered it. They lived with intentionality, prioritizing what truly mattered and discarding the rest. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire, made time for daily reflection. He knew that without clear priorities, the world would dictate his time for him. You know this struggle. You felt it. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, determined to have a productive day. But before you even start, your phone buzzes. A notification, a message, an email. You check it, just for a second. But that second turns into 5 minutes, then 10. Before you know it, you're lost in the abyss of digital noise. Now it's noon. You've done nothing meaningful. You feel restless, anxious, like the day is slipping away. So you push harder, trying to catch up. More tasks, more distractions. By night, you're exhausted. But what did you truly accomplish? Did you move forward, or did the day control you? This is the cycle most people live in, a cycle of reactivity instead of intentionality. Now let's shift the perspective. Imagine waking up with clarity, no checking notifications first thing in the morning, no mindless consumption of distractions. Instead, you set your priorities. You protect your time. You decide how your day unfolds. That's the difference between a life dictated by distractions and a life lived with purpose. If you want to reclaim your time, start by looking at the people around you. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you are constantly surrounded by negativity, gossip, and people who drain your energy, don't be surprised when your time is wasted. Not every relationship deserves your time. Not every invitation needs an acceptance. Not every request should get a yes. Time wasted with the wrong people is time stolen from the life you could be building. Some people will call this selfish. Let them. Because the truth is, the people who genuinely respect you will respect your boundaries. And the ones who get offended, they were never truly in your corner to begin with. Time isn't just about productivity, it's also about rest. Many people feel guilty when they slow down, as if being constantly busy equals success. But the mind, like a muscle, needs recovery. Rest isn't weakness, it's strategy. The world will always try to pull you in 100 directions. It will demand your time, your energy, your focus. But you have a choice. So the next time someone asks for your time, ask yourself, is this worth it? The next time you reach for your phone, pause and ask, is this serving me or is it controlling me? Because if you don't guard your time, no one else will. 4. Own your life. No more excuses. Every excuse you make weakens you. Every time you point a finger, every time you blame circumstances, people, or luck, you give away your power. You are telling the world that something outside of you is in control, that life is happening to you instead of because of you. And as long as you believe that, you remain stuck. People complain about their jobs, their relationships, their finances. They say, it's not my fault. The system is unfair. My boss is an idiot. My parents didn't give me a head start. The economy is bad. People don't support me. And maybe all of that is true. But what now? Do you sit in your misery hoping the world changes for you? Or do you take what you have and do something about it? The ancient Stoics understood this well. Epictetus put it bluntly, you cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That single truth separates the weak from the strong. The weak wait for circumstances to improve. The strong improve themselves despite the circumstances. Think about this. If you keep blaming external factors, where does that leave you? Helpless. If your problems are always someone else's fault, then your solutions are also out of your hands. And that is a dangerous place to be, because it means you're waiting for something outside of you to change before you can move forward. But life doesn't work that way. The world does not stop to fix itself for you. If you want change, you must be the one to create it. There was a man, let's call him James. For years, he lived as a prisoner of his own excuses. His career was stagnant, his relationships were falling apart, his health was declining, and in his mind, none of it was his fault. His boss didn't recognize his potential, his partner didn't support him. The world didn't give him the same opportunities others had, so he waited. He waited for someone to acknowledge his talent. He waited for motivation to magically appear. He waited for the perfect moment to take action. But the days passed, then weeks, then years, and nothing changed. One day, he had a realization. He looked at his life and asked, what if the problem isn't out there? What if the problem is me? That moment changed everything. Because if the problem was him, then the solution was also him. Instead of blaming his boss, he worked on his skills, made himself indispensable, and created new opportunities. Instead of complaining about his relationships, he changed how he communicated, how he listened, and who he allowed into his life. Instead of making excuses about his health, he built discipline, changed his habits, and transformed his body. He stopped waiting for life to fix itself and took ownership of everything. And the more he did, the stronger he became. Eventually, the things that used to break him lost their power. The things that once felt impossible became stepping stones. You've seen this in your own life, haven't you? Those moments when you catch yourself saying, I can't because, but deep down, you know that's not true. You know there's always something you can do. Imagine standing in the middle of a raging storm. The wind is howling, the rain is pounding. You have two choices. You can scream at the sky, curse the storm, and demand it to stop. Or you can plant your feet, square your shoulders, and push forward. The storm isn't going to stop for you, but if you become strong enough, it won't matter. This is what the Stoics understood. Life is unpredictable. People will betray you. Plans will fail. Unexpected challenges will come. You will face hardship, injustice, and loss. But none of that determines your fate. Only you do. Seneca had a rule. Spend less time complaining about the world and more time improving yourself. Because the world isn't going to stop being unfair. The only way to rise above it is to become better, sharper, stronger. Think about your own life. The thing you've been struggling with, the challenge that keeps you up at night. Are you focusing on the problem, or are you focusing on what you can do about it? That difference is everything. You want a better career? Then stop blaming your job and start learning skills that make you irreplaceable. You want a better relationship? Then stop expecting people to change and start becoming the person you would want to be with. You want more confidence? Then stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action despite the fear. This is not about ignoring real struggles. Life is hard. The system is unfair. Some people do have it easier than others, but none of that changes the fact that you are still responsible for what happens next. And that is the key. Responsibility is power. The moment you take full responsibility for your life, you take full control of it. If you want to be unbreakable, stop looking for excuses and start looking for solutions. Stop waiting for someone to save you and start saving yourself. Because at the end of the day, life is simple. You either own your life or someone else will. 5. Speak to yourself like a true friend. You wouldn't insult your best friend for making a mistake. You wouldn't call them a failure, tell them they're worthless, or convince them they have no future. But how often do you say those things to yourself? Self-talk is powerful. It's the voice that guides you, shapes your confidence, and ultimately decides how you face life. If that voice is destructive, if it constantly reminds you of your flaws and failures, it doesn't just stay in your head, it controls your actions. It determines what you try, what you give up on, and what kind of person you become. Most people are their own worst enemy. They say things to themselves they would never say to another person. They look in the mirror and see every flaw. They replay their mistakes over and over as if punishing themselves will change the past. But it never does. Marcus Aurelius understood this. Every morning, he reminded himself, when you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. A simple truth. But how often do you start your day with gratitude instead of criticism? Most people don't. They wake up thinking about what they did wrong, what they need to fix, and what they still lack. They dwell on failures, replay conversations, and magnify their weaknesses. But here's what they don't realize. Your words shape your reality. If you tell yourself you're not good enough, you act like someone who isn't good enough. If you tell yourself you're weak, you hesitate. If you convince yourself you're a failure, you stop trying. Your mind is like soil. Whatever you plant grows. If you plant doubt, insecurity, and self-hatred, don't be surprised when your life is full of fear and hesitation. But if you plant resilience, gratitude, and confidence, you become unstoppable. Seneca compared human growth to the refining of a gem. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Growth requires struggle. Every challenge, every failure, every painful moment, it's all sharpening you, but only if you allow it to. There was a woman, let's call her Emily. She was successful on the outside, but constantly battled herself internally. Whenever something went wrong, she blamed herself. She replayed mistakes endlessly. She compared herself to others and always felt behind. One day, after making a small mistake at work, she spiraled. "I'm such an idiot," she told herself. "I'll never get this right." But then something clicked. She stopped and asked, "Would I say this to my best friend?" The answer was obvious, so she made a change. Instead of, I always mess up," she told herself, "I'm learning." Instead of, "I'll never be good enough," she said, "I'm improving every day." Instead of dwelling on the past, she focused on what she could do next. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly she rewired the way she spoke to herself. And as her self-talk changed, so did her actions. She took more risks. She stopped hesitating. She stopped doubting herself at every turn. And eventually, the things that once broke her no longer had power over her. Think about how you talk to yourself. Are you your greatest supporter, or are you tearing yourself down? Imagine two warriors going into battle. One tells himself, "I am strong, I am ready." The other tells himself, "I am weak, I will fail." Now tell me, which one stands a chance? It's the same with life. If you go into your day thinking you're not enough, you'll act like someone who isn't enough. If you believe in your strength, you will fight like someone who cannot be broken. This is not about blind positivity. Stoicism does not teach delusion. It teaches clarity. It teaches you to see things as they are. You will make mistakes, you will fail, but none of that defines you unless you let it. So the next time you catch yourself tearing yourself down, stop. Ask yourself, would I say this to someone I love? If not, then why say it to yourself? Speak to yourself with honesty, but also with kindness. Challenge yourself, but don't destroy yourself. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall. They are the ones who fall, get back up, and keep moving, without tearing themselves apart in the process. 6. Stay hungry for knowledge and growth. The moment you think you've learned enough, you begin to decline. Growth is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong process. The mind, like a blade, dulls without constant sharpening. The strongest people never stop learning, not just from books, but from experience, from failure, from the world around them. Some people believe knowledge ends after school, that once they have a degree, a stable job, or a level of expertise, they've arrived. But that mindset is a trap. The world keeps moving, and if you stop learning, you don't just stand still, you fall behind. The greatest mistake is thinking you already know enough. The second you believe that, you close yourself off from growth. You stop questioning, you stop improving, and without growth, there is only stagnation. Seneca put it simply, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. That means challenging your own beliefs, seeking out new perspectives, reading not just for entertainment, but for transformation. Surrounding yourself with people who push you to think deeper, to see beyond your own assumptions. Some people reject this idea. They stick to what they know because it feels safe. They fear being wrong, fear feeling ignorant. But real strength is not in knowing everything. It's in being willing to learn, to admit when you don't know, to seek out knowledge rather than avoid it. There was a man, let's call him Daniel. He built a comfortable career. For years, he did the same work, in the same way, surrounded by the same people. He was good at what he did, and he thought that was enough. But over time, things changed. Technology evolved. Younger professionals entered the field with new ideas, new approaches, and slowly, without realizing it, he started falling behind. At first, he ignored it. He told himself he already knew everything he needed. He dismissed the changes, convinced they weren't important. But then, one day, reality hit. He lost a major opportunity to someone younger, someone who had adapted, someone who had kept learning. That was his wake-up call. He could either stay in his comfort zone, slowly becoming obsolete, or he could adapt. And that meant learning, again. So he humbled himself. He sought out knowledge. He learned from people younger than him. He read books on subjects he had ignored. He updated his skills. And in doing so, he didn't just stay relevant. He became stronger than ever before. This is what separates those who thrive from those who fade away. Some people spend their lives defending what they already know, afraid to admit there is more. Others embrace learning as a way of life, knowing that true mastery is never achieved, it is always pursued. Think about water. The moment it stops flowing, it becomes stagnant. It loses its freshness. It begins to decay. Your mind works the same way. The moment you stop learning, stop challenging yourself, stop seeking growth, you begin to decay. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually. Imagine being a warrior on the battlefield. You have trained with one weapon your entire life. You are skilled, experienced, confident. But then one day, you step onto the battlefield and the enemy has evolved. Their weapons are different. Their tactics have changed. If you refuse to adapt, if you rely only on what you once knew, you lose. The modern battlefield is no different. The world changes, markets shift, technologies advance, even personal relationships evolve, and those who refuse to keep learning, to keep adapting, to keep improving, they are the first to fall. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, never stopped learning. Every day he wrote in his journal, questioning himself, reflecting on his experiences, absorbing knowledge. He knew that the moment he assumed he knew enough, he would stop growing. And a leader who stops growing is a leader who begins to fail. Look at your own life. When was the last time you truly pushed yourself to learn something new? Not just passively consumed information, but actively sought out knowledge that challenged you. Have you surrounded yourself with people who inspire growth, or people who keep you stuck in the same place? Your mind is your greatest weapon, but like any weapon, it must be maintained, sharpened, strengthened. Otherwise, it becomes dull, ineffective. If you want to be unbreakable, never stop learning. Never stop questioning. Never let your ego convince you that you have arrived. Because there is no finish line in growth, only the decision to keep moving forward. 7. Control your focus. Your mind is your strongest weapon, but like any weapon, if you don't control it, it controls you. Most people don't realize this. They let their thoughts wander, get distracted by meaningless things, and allow their focus to be hijacked by negativity, fear, and external noise. Think about your day. How often do you start with intention? How often do you wake up and decide, This is what I will focus on today, and nothing else will steal my attention. Or do you wake up, grab your phone, check the news, scroll through social media, react to notifications, and let the world dictate your mindset before you even step out of bed? Every day, distractions fight for control over your mind. Social media, news, emails, advertisements, all designed to keep you hooked, to pull you away from what truly matters. If you don't take control, these distractions will consume you, leaving you scattered, anxious, and unable to focus on the things that actually move your life forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the key. Strength is not just about physical endurance or resilience in the face of hardship. It's about mental discipline, the ability to direct your focus where it matters, to eliminate distractions, and to master your own thoughts. Ask yourself, are you in control of your mind, or is your mind controlling you? Imagine your thoughts like a river. If you let it flow unchecked, it will take you wherever the current pulls. Some days it might be smooth waters. Other days, it might be a violent storm pulling you under, drowning you in stress, fear, and negativity. But if you take control, if you build a dam, redirect the flow, and choose where your energy goes, you shape the direction of your life. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't waste energy on things outside their control. They focused on what they could influence, their actions, their mindset, their response to challenges. But most people live the opposite way. They give their energy to things that don't serve them. They stress over politics, argue about things that don't matter, dwell on past mistakes, and worry about the opinions of people who don't even care about them. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, frustrated, and lost. The truth is simple. What you focus on grows. If you focus on negativity, you will find more reasons to be negative. If you focus on distractions, your life will be filled with wasted time. But if you focus on progress, discipline, and inner peace, you will move forward, even in the worst conditions. Picture this. A man is walking through a storm. The wind is howling. Rain is pouring down. The path ahead is barely visible. He has two choices. He can fixate on the storm, complain about the rain, curse the wind, and let fear paralyze him. Or he can keep his eyes on the path, move forward step by step, and refuse to let the chaos around him dictate his actions. That's how focus works. The storm will always be there. Challenges, distractions, negativity. But what matters is where you direct your mind. Most people allow their focus to be controlled by outside forces. They hear bad news and immediately spiral into anxiety. They see someone else's success and suddenly feel inadequate. They allow a single failure to make them believe they are not good enough. But mental strength is the ability to choose what deserves your attention. The world is full of noise, opinions, gossip, endless news cycles designed to provoke outrage. If you consume these things mindlessly, you become a slave to them. You react instead of act. You absorb negativity instead of creating something meaningful. But here's the good news. Focus is a skill. It can be trained, it can be strengthened. And the first step is simple. Decide what deserves your energy. Ask yourself, every single day, is this thought serving me, or is it a distraction? Is this action moving me forward, or is it pulling me into meaningless chaos? If something is outside your control, let it go. If something doesn't improve your life, eliminate it. If something doesn't align with your purpose, stop giving it attention. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He faced war, betrayal, political chaos, and yet he didn't waste his thoughts on anger, bitterness, or resentment. He focused on what he could control: his actions, his mind, his character. The same principle applies to your daily life. If you let every inconvenience, every rude comment, every unfair situation steal your focus, you will never have the energy to build something great. If you waste hours on distractions, reacting to everything around you, you will never create something meaningful. True freedom is not doing whatever you want. True freedom is controlling your mind so that nothing controls you. A disciplined mind is unstoppable. It does not get shaken by opinions. It does not get lost in meaningless distractions. It does not waste time on things that do not matter. It is focused, it is steady, and it is unbreakable. So starting today, be ruthless with your attention. Guard it like your most valuable possession. Choose your focus wisely, because the man who controls his mind controls everything. Life will test you. It will throw challenges your way, unexpected losses, failures, moments of doubt. But these things do not define you. What defines you is how you respond. Whether you break or rise stronger is a decision only you can make. You now understand the habits that separate the unbreakable from the fragile. Adapt to change instead of fearing it. Control your emotions instead of letting them control you. Guard your time and energy like a fortress. Take full responsibility for your life, no more excuses. Speak to yourself with strength, not self-doubt. Stay hungry for knowledge, always learning, always growing. And above all, master your focus, because the man who controls his mind controls his destiny. But knowledge alone is not enough. You must practice. These habits are like muscles. They grow only when you train them. Every day, life will give you the chance to apply them. A challenge at work? Adapt. A moment of anger? Breathe and take control. A distraction pulling you away from what matters? Cut it off. Every choice you make is an opportunity to become stronger. Start today. Pick one habit and commit to it. Practice it relentlessly. Then another, and another, until they are no longer things you do, but who you are. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these habits do you struggle with most? How have challenges shaped your growth? Share your story in the comments. I read every one of them. Because in the end, we are all warriors in the battle of life. And the strongest warriors are the ones who train every single day.